Okay, we are live. Live on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Excuse me. Okay.
Good afternoon, Travis. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's always a different taste having you here. I like it. Cool. So welcome everyone. So we're the Futures Now Coalition. This is our Think Tank Live show. So welcome back to the Think podcast. At Think, we streamline democracy so you can vote for you. Every week, we break down what's happening in politics using one simple frame, up-down lens. It's not left, it's not right, just representation. Up means power first, down means people first, and it helps all of us see the real patterns behind shutdowns, donor deals, and the stories that never get explained clearly. Think is basically your civic utility. We plug citizens, trusted journalists, and underdog candidates into one digital politics hub coming soon, next couple weeks. So together we can use today's rules differently and start building digital democracy, which is the future home of America's politics. Our goal is simple: better choices, better outcomes, and one fair system where every candidate is seen and every citizen is heard. If you want to help shape what comes next, join our newsletter so you can get notified when the Digital Politics Hub goes live, again in a few weeks, where you'll be able to nominate voices you trust, take quick up-down actions that build people first power, and also put your name to be a future owner of this new platform. All right, so let's get into it. Today, we're going to get into, I guess this is your part, Carrie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad to be filling in for Liz today so she can have a day off. But I wanted to start off by kind of recapping a little bit of what she brought up yesterday, the new hemp restrictions that were slipped in during the shutdown. Like, I never really thought about it because I don't use hemp products, but I like that she highlighted it because it's just a great example of the rig system working against us right under our noses, and we just let it happen. And I fell into the same trap that a lot of people do because I don't personally use it or am affected by it. I kind of just let it go by the wayside, and we shouldn't do that. So I'm thankful that she brought that up and made that a topic yesterday. And I just, there's a lot of other things that we're seeing that kind of correlate with it. But like I said, just, the fact that you bring it up, talk about it, that's what needs to happen.
Yeah, I don't use hemp specifically myself, but I know there's like a million uses for it. There's always could have been. I know it's marijuana in general, I know competes with the alcohol industry and all that, but then even hemp, the stuff with like the paper industry would have been at stake, and that's part of why they I don't know, there's a lot of rumors of why it was all illegal in the first place, but one of the ideas is that both the paper and alcohol industries were threatened by hemp. But point being, back then and now, that it's not about the interests of the people, and it's not about what the people want. It's like who has the most money to influence policy to go in a certain directions, which is
because if they think about all the jobs that are going to be lost and everybody's lives who are going to be affected by this. I seen an article where somebody was talking this is going to make me potentially die because people who take those products that are meant for seizures, so they don't really need the THC, they just need the CBD type stuff. Those people are going to have to figure out other ways to do it. And somebody who suffers from seizures myself, that really hit me, because if I didn't control mine with my diet and other things and relied on a CBD product, I would be really concerned, because seizures aren't fun, and it ruins, your whole life when you can't function. And It also, too, is a slippery slope, because if they're going to start attacking this and we let them get away with it, next is going to be the cannabis, because, again, that's another thing that is in competition with the same people. So it's just their little test run to be oh, let's see what we can get away with before we can take it back. But I just don't even see how what they did can even get anywhere, considering so many people are for it. How many states have it for recreational and medical use, the cannabis? A
Uh,
lot.
yeah, I don't know the
And at some
exact.
point,
It's
when does the federal government have to decide, hey, we need to like look at what the states are doing and, adjust our, guidelines because we see that it's changing. People's views of it are changing and we can't even really study it properly because it's not scheduled right.
yeah. Yeah, I don't know the exact numbers, but it's at least half the states legalize it at least for medical purposes. Most of them, most of that half is also recreational. Like there's more medicinal, but then some recreational. But yeah, definitely more than half. I mean, at least we got past like I don't know if we're backtracking now, but there was a point where like it was illegal federally, but then they would like raid like legal dispensaries in certain states, and then I think it was when Obama was in office. He did something where, well, if it's legal in the state, at least just kind of don't raid them basically. So at least there's that, because it's like we're spending money building these dispensaries and then also spending money like tearing them down. It's like that's just crazy. Um,
And they're still keeping a thumb on them because like a lot of them, the banks won't deal with them. It's either
yeah,
cash and like if you have to go in there and buy it, from what I'm told, like you can use your debit card
yeah,
now, but
yeah,
it's the transaction is more like an ATM withdrawal versus an actual purchase. So they've learned how to
yeah,
get around the system, which
yeah,
I'll give them, kudos for that. Always a great way to work around it, but it's ridiculous that they have to do that. I'm pretty sure the banks themselves are like, there's a lot of money here. We want to participate. We just can't because we don't want to lose whatever federal stuff we would lose or whatever their reasoning is behind it. It's like we just need to move past that. And I feel like a lot of presidents, politicians tease that a lot. Like that's like their, ooh, I'm going to do this for you. People get excited and forget about everything else that they're talking about, because I do remember hearing that it was supposed to be talked about rescheduling, but they've kind of just like forgotten about that. It's like, well, let's do something about it. Maybe that would help what this bill is doing, and people can, you know, move on with their lives and go back to normal, or what their normal was.
yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's funny with the ATM thing. You're absolutely right. Like I've been in those dispensaries, and it's like they have to it has to be in like counts of 20, and then like they do the transaction, and then they actually have to give you some cash back if there's like if it was like $19, they have to charge you $20 to give you $1 back. So
Yeah, it has to be rounded up. There is no, $15 purchase. It's like it's 20, and that's just what's being deducted, and we'll give you $5 back.
yeah. Yeah, so to your point, it's like it's clearly a way to get around the legality of how to take it from a debit card. Yeah, I don't know how it works on the back end, but to your point, it's basically an ATM withdrawal. Um, but yeah, I mean, yeah, the bottom line is like who's the ones making these final decisions of like what is legal, how legal are things. That's what's unfair about the system that we're here talking about. And it it's not always like everything that America wants they should get necessarily. We live in a republic, and more like you elect representatives to represent you, but they're not representing us right now, and that's the core of it. Like if they have a reason like, oh, most America wants this, but that's against their own interest, that's more understandable. But there's just a lot of situations that it's just so clear that they're just in favor of their biggest donors, and it's not about our interests at all. It's about like who has their money in that politician's pocket is who's winning in that scenario.
I wonder if they're just really, really scared to actually let that change happen, because then that would be a really big signal that they have to listen to the people and things are changing, because like it became illegal because like reefer badness and all that stuff like that. Like it's all propaganda, political BS. And it's, well, if we finally are seeing clearly through that cloud, pun intended, maybe we'll see through the other bullshit and start pointing out like, well, if we've made that change without, I mean, and that change is being made without the masses of people really doing anything other than going and buying it.
Yeah, yeah.
And the money too, like where's the tax money? I know our state has had it for a while, and I feel like our state hasn't gotten the money, or where is it going? They're not really transparent about that, and I think that might help a lot of people who may be on like on the sidelines about where they feel about it. But it's like, well, if you see that money doing good, you're like, oh, well, it's not that bad. Doesn't affect me. I'm not, you're not worried about people breaking into your house for a bag of weed.
Right.
If they do break in, they're just going to steal your chips.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, no, to your question, I don't know so much about where the taxes are, but I do know, when like a couple of years back when this was all new, like dispensaries and all that, I was like, oh, well, that'll be a great way for small businesses to rise and like, different farmers and this and that. But come to find out that there's still its own version of an establishment. Some of it's the tobacco companies just shifting their industries. Some of it they just became their own. They're trying to already monopolize it and like not allow the small guys involved in the growth. And I know like medicine type thing has to be highly regulated, but they're trying to monopolize it the way like big pharma monopolized other like true pharmaceuticals. So I was disappointed to find out that it's not like the marijuana market is not as mom and pop as I was hoping it would end up being.
Oh no, the
Yeah.
regulations to like open up a grow place and a dispensary, the money it costs. I know somebody here, his cousin owns one of the dispensaries here, and he was talking about like, it's just like 20 grand just to file the application. And that's not even including all the things you are required to have. Like you have to have a certain amount of security in your place, which is reasonable, but it's still very expensive out of pocket when you aren't making money yet. You're
Yeah.
throwing out all this money on the promise of making money, and that's a lot. And so, mom and pop people aren't going to be able to do that. I was
Yeah.
actually disappointed because I remember as a kid, I always heard, oh, the tobacco companies are set up basically to just start growing it because they know that it's profitable. Like they're ready. They could make this switch. They could start growing half their fields with that and do it that way, but they haven't yet. And I don't know why. Maybe
Yeah.
because they don't see the money in it, the long-term money, but
Well, what it
I
boils
don't know
down to,
what it is.
like, if you can't invest, if your industry can't, if you can't group in enough people to spend millions in lobbying to lobby an interest in politics, then your interest doesn't get included. And like that's a lot of what we're fighting against right now. So, if it's all like the smaller farmers want to like have their own say in legislation, they're not going to have the lobbying power as big tobacco and other billion-dollar industries. And so that's part of why if our democracy, if money means you get a louder voice and a louder influence in politics, that's not cool. You already have enough influence. You have money. You already have a louder voice in public society, like billboards and commercials. But the fact that your money can also influence government, like government's the one place that's supposed to be like, everyone has an equal representation. And like, the money gives you voice in the free market, but in the government itself, it should be, for what the majority wants and all that. Um, so, so those lobbies, like I bet there probably even is smaller, like small time, like farmer lobbies for the smaller guy, but they're not going to be able to spend the money. They could talk to the politicians, they could plead with them in a certain way. Like I believe, like lobbying, aside from the bribery that happens with lobbying, like I understand like having hiring somebody to represent your industry, that makes sense. Like I understand lobbying in like a purely like talking to politicians, this is why it's important for our industry that you do this legislation. But then when you're doing the gifts and donations and like all the slimy stuff that happens, that's where it's unfair. And then so those with the most money has the louder lobby, basically. um so that's again part of what we're up against.
Yeah,
um
like I said, just a classic politics example that we just got this week or
yeah.
last week, whenever it happened. My timeline's like all days are one big blur. So it's this week, last week, I don't know, it could all be the same day. But I think that's it's a good segue into the next thing that I saw that I'm like, there's another good example of, you know, up politics and the politicians serving people who have money and just doesn't make any sense because you and I wouldn't have this kind of access. We've been hearing about that congresswoman who was texting with Jeffrey Epstein during some kind of congressional hearing for, I can't remember the guy's name, but it was one of Trump's lawyers or something like that, Cohen. And it's like, well, how do you have your congressperson's direct cell phone number? I know I don't.
Right.
And I know they wouldn't be taking my calls during a hearing. And it's like, well, what are you doing taking calls from anybody while you're supposed to be focusing on what's in front of you? Like, you're not in jury duty on your phone going, oh, this person just texted me that, you're a bad guy, or whatever. Like, that's not how that works. You should be focused on what you're doing. And it baffles me. And then they move so quickly on voting to sanction her or punish her for that. I mean, that was the quickest I think I've ever seen government move. They went from the thing being released to they voted to not sanction her or whatever. But it's like, well, that was really quick. Usually that stuff takes a long time. And it just, like I said, it's a perfect example of upserving, because she claims she didn't know certain things, but he was in that position because he had money and influence.
Yeah. So yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I mean, it's funny because people we do have less of a pressure. Like public pressure is not as strong as it used to be now that money just grows and grows, the influence of money and lobbying. But it still has some influence. And so to your point about the Epstein files, I mean, Epstein is one of the hottest topics in the country. So anytime something like that comes out, both sides go crazy. Both sides are involved in a positive way. It forces more transparency, and they know that every action they're taking is under a microscope by us, citizens looking at it. The problem is we can't do that with every single situation and every single legislation that's passed. We can't put up look at it that deeply, nor should we. There should be a transparent system like what we're building with digital democracy. But yeah, so that's why I would say some of the quicker actions right now is related to that. It's also really curious timing, right around the shutdown ending. This happened, so I don't know if that's trying to they're trying to distract from the shutdown stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, and they also I believe they officially voted, both houses or whatever have voted to push to release the files as well. So we'll see if that actually happens. I think Bondi said within the next 30 days it should be released, which will be interesting to see how redacted they are. It's it's going to be a few ands to the, everything's going to be black. You're like, okay, well, that's really helpful.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I was curious. I was really shocked on that too. That this Transparency Act, it was voted unanimously. I think it's in the Senate, and then in the House, only one person said no. And it's it's just so funny how it's just so it feels random when they say that Congress can't get along, Democrat versus Republican, blah blah blah. But sometimes you just they're unanimously go in one direction. It's just curious and funny how that happens and when that happens. But yeah, they move quick on that on both sides. But to your point, yeah, I still skeptical, because I would guess that there's both Republican and Democrat names in those files, so both sides secretly don't want all of it to be revealed. It's they're arguing that that some people were trying to alter some of the information. I don't know. I don't want to speculate or land on a specific side of it, but they're saying that they're trying to adjust some of the stuff before it gets released. So who knows on that. But bottom line is the fact that we can't even trust government these days, and that goes for both parties, regardless of who's in power. Trust in government is an all-time low for the last 10-ish years. And so we don't know. We don't know how this can pan out. We don't know, what they're going to release. Is it going to be everything? What are they altering? And we're just at a very unfortunate time when, it's one thing, when there's a scandal with a president and it's just the president or maybe them and a couple cronies, but the fact that it's the entire government is not trusted. You have no, virtually no one in there.
The government is the planet, because Prince Andrew and everything, there's people, this isn't just a US thing, this is a global thing. So
yeah.
We're also on the world stage here as well.
Yeah.
But you were saying, I almost wonder what back end deal did they make to be so cohesive, like
Yeah.
they all got along, but why? Who promised who what's going to be released from here? And also too, like when they're saying, oh, this is for transparency, but they're doing it with their own uh, party blinders on. Like they only want it released because they want to see what's bad about them. They don't care about their people.
Yeah.
They'll be making excuses for their own people or whatever, just flat out ignoring that it exists.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this whole text thing. I can't remember who it was I saw, but it was a video of a guy saying, well, there's no rule against taking calls in this. And it's like, well, maybe there should be. And the fact that you just dismiss this as like nonchalant, oh, it's okay. She's just potentially getting help because like you read the text, he was giving her some kind of like information or help on her questioning the guy when it came up to her turn. And he told her like, great job. And it's like, why do you guys have this relationship? That's so weird. If it was a Republican, they probably would have crucified him already just because of who he is. And it's funny that I say that because I was reading that she was actually a Republican and turned Democrat in like 2008. So she's one of those people who had flipped. It's like, well, what made you flip? What did they promise you? And what have you been a part of? Has she made it? What's her money like? Who's donating to her campaign?
Yeah. Actually, that would have been a good thing to dive into her funding sources and see if there's anything we see there. Maybe we could do that in a future episode. But real quick, I want to do a little reset. I see a lot of people coming in. If y'all want to do, if you could like, follow, subscribe, share stuff. We're just moving into a major new milestone in a couple weeks, launching our digital politics hub and really starting to push the next level to coordinate to build the future of democracy, the digital democracy. And so you could join our newsletter so you get alerted when that app comes out. Again, less than a month, I'll say. So that's coming. And in general, for those that are just joining now, this is our Think Tank Live, and we're here to streamline democracy so you can vote for you. We're not left, we're not right. We use the up-down lens. Up is power first, down is people first. We're getting ready to launch this hub, the Digital Politics Hub, where you'll be able to compare leaders clearly and nominate voices you trust. Also, feel free to drop your questions in our chat. Join our newsletter for the alerts, and you'll get first access when this goes live. Right now, we're live here on TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. So we're watching. If anyone chats in any of those and pop a question, we'll move right to you guys. But yeah, so back to
yeah, I was gonna call out that even if you're watching it on a replay and you have a question, throw it in there and we'll make sure we, get it in one of the next lives. So that way it's not missed.
Yeah. And we're just really like you're gonna see a lot of new stuff from us in the coming weeks, a lot more ways to empower you as a citizen to get more involved and build a more transparent, more accountable government. So it's we're in exciting times and moving forward. A lot of new progress.
I'm really excited about the hub coming out and have them actually having a place to come and start giving their opinions, start giving us information so that we can actually legit start building this with people.
Yeah.
Because we need their input, we need their participation. It's not going to work if you don't.
Yeah, so basically, in short, digital democracy is the future home for America's democracy, and it's going to be built with America, with you. And so before that can happen, we're using this hub as like a coordination hub to get your feedback, to grow who wants to be involved. We want journalists, we want politicians, citizens, movements, other political orgs, all grassroots. And have a plan to really coordinate and move forward. Even if you're not tech savvy, there's a lot of non-tech ways of giving your feedback. And it's really about, building the next generation of politics, building a system where, all candidates are showcased equally, and it shows their fundraising sources and how good are they with keeping their promises. So there's a lot to build towards. It's just there's a lot to it, and we need the people power. And so this digital politics hub will give us that coordination power and be able to coordinate and grow this to where it needs to be. Um, so
Yeah,
cool.
and I feel like young voters are probably the people who really, really are going to want to get into this because, I can't remember if it was Liz or somebody else on the team that showed us that NPR article that was titled something like American Dreams Feel Impossible for Young Voters or something like that. And they had a bunch of post-it notes of young voters saying how they feel. And it was just like, wow, I feel like that too. I feel like that too. And I feel like a lot of people who would read that would be like, yep, I agree, I agree. And it's like, well, now it's time to find this path on what we need to do to make this better, because the American dream is something everybody should, be able to get, but it's not that achievable anymore. And it's I don't want to say our own doing, but it is.
Yeah, well, I mean, people didn't realize that you have to still be like democracy you can't just build it and leave it on the side and expect it to continue to grow. We as a people have to keep nurturing it, growing it, and especially evolving it. Now we're in the digital age. Such a different world than it used to be before the internet. And so us as citizens, we can't just expect it to build itself. We can't expect our leaders to grow it. Like, we have to be the ones to make sure democracy continues to exist and keep building it and making sure it's healthy. But yeah, so to your point though, yeah, like, I mean, most Americans agree, like, the American dream is dead right now, and, like, who knows what the future holds. The economy keeps getting worse for like the last decade or so. Just a lot of this, all the stats are showing negativity, lacking trust in government, trust in media, faith in the country. So it's definitely time that democracy needs an upgrade, basically. And we're coordinating. I like the best part about what we're doing, that I feel, is that we're coordinating the future of democracy, not as left versus right. Like, everyone coming into it is going to have their own leanings. We all have our leanings, whether we like it or not. But democracy as a system, there's no sides to it. We're talking about a system where, of transparency and accountability, that you see if a candidate fulfills their promises, that who's funding their campaign, where is their conflicts of interest coming from. Most America agrees, Congress shouldn't be able to do stock market insider trading and make millions off the stock market just because they have insider information. I don't know if it's official, but, like, most people want term limits. That might be a thing for Congress. That's something that America would talk out and ultimately decide for themselves. So just the bottom line is, like, the core system of democracy doesn't have these sides. Like, the only sides is really just the people that like buying democracy and not having a real democracy, and those that want a true democracy, which, is like 85-95% of the population wants a genuine democracy where we all have a real voice. So that's what we're building towards. So it doesn't matter where you hail as left versus right or third party, independent, everyone's welcome into this. Especially those that are not happy with the current system. It's all about, making it better for the future, for our kids, and for the future of everything.
Yeah, with term limits, like, I know a lot of people are on the fence about that. Like, there's both pros and cons for it, because, like, you don't want to force out somebody who's doing good. Like, let's say you have somebody who actually represents their district, they're doing great. Like, you want to keep them in there as long as they want to be there. But we usually get the opposite. We get the ones who are serving their donors, and they're the ones who get reelected over and over and over, no matter what. And that's part of one of the biggest problems in this system. So instead of term limits, something where, like, this is a compromise for people who even may not want to do certain things. Like, well, let's put a restriction on approval ratings. Like, you can't even run for reelection unless you have a 45%. I mean, I feel like that's kind of low. It should be higher, but we know that's also a high bar for them when most of them are at 14 or minus something, Like, we shouldn't even allow that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not, like, both as Fink and me personally, we're not standing on a specific side of term limits. We want to discuss it, but I've heard I've heard points on both sides, and I do like what you're saying, that if it's based on approval ratings. I mean, right now it's so abysmal that, like, the stats are something like, is like over 85% of America, like Congress has like a disapproval rating of like 85%, and yet like the re-election rates are like above 90%. Like that's crazy that we basically hate our candidates but still keep re-electing them, and they're almost guaranteed to get re-elected. Like that is not democracy. um so
A lot of
but
times they're probably getting reelected too, because that same thing where only like 10% of the
yeah,
base actually votes.
yeah,
People who aren't really interested, they just don't vote. So there's like 50%. So, then the other 50% is divided up between other people, and it just needs more participation. People need to actually go out and vote and show where they stand, because we don't do that as much as we should.
yeah, hands down. I mean, that's going to be one of our biggest pushes as we coordinate digital democracy. Is it's all about the primaries. It because like, I was thinking about that the last couple of days, that like, why are we stuck where like the re-election rates are so high? It's because, so if you're in a Democrat district or Republican district, that candidate, when it comes to the general and it's a Republican against a Democrat, yeah, the Democrat's going to always win usually win in a Democrat district, and Republican will win in the Republican district. But so that's why we're stuck in this lesser two evils, and why the re-election rates are high while approval is so low, is that we don't have a healthy primary. Primary is where you choose better candidates. So if this district is almost guaranteed to go Democrat, at least in the primary, you can pick a better candidate to win in the general, and vice versa. At least in the primary, you could get a better Republican to win in the general. So it's really all about the primary, and part of the problem of the primary is they don't want to make a big deal out of it. They want to just sneak their favorite candidates through. And so it's hard for people to know who they want to vote for and have a strong side of who they want to support. And so that's part of why they're not part of the primaries. So we're trying to streamline that, make it easier with digital democracy. It'll be where you'll see all the candidates during the primary season. You'll even see third party and independent candidates, match everyone side by side. You could be part of the primary, but then also decide that in certain places you might like an independent over the main candidates. It's really going to be up to you. But the biggest thing is just streamlining that information of the primaries, of who's running, what is their background, like help you have the information at your disposal to make the right decision. So to your point, it's a huge part is about the primaries. That's where change can really happen. The general election tends to be stuck in the lesser two evils, unless you're in like a swing state or swing district where it flips back and forth. Like a lot of districts are always Democrat or always Republican. So, change it in the primaries.
I know if I was somebody running for office, I would really be looking forward to, this digital politics hub and then digital democracy down the road, because then you could actually like go in there and see what people in your district are wanting.
Yeah.
And then you would actually be a better candidate, even if like you don't agree with it. You at least will know how to play them with what they want. So like it's a double-edged sword, because they could be lying to you, but then that will come out in the end if you don't actually follow through on your promises. But it'd be nice to see, because like think about the vote for the censure up there for that congresswoman. Each one of those people represents a district. Did they check what the people in their district thought, or are they just doing it off of their own mind? And it's like, well, if I was in that, I would want to say, like, I would want them to know how I feel, like, as opposed to just doing what they want. And that would be where something like this would come in, before they go in there, instead of, getting texts from their, rich buddy that's influencing things, they would check the digital democracy platform and be like, oh, okay, 60% of my people say we should be voting yes. And let me read their, opinions on it. And then I can go in and do my job, but put my phone down and not be texting people and getting calls in the middle of the thing.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, you're absolutely right, because it's kind of like a lot of that happens in like influencer world and social media world, where they turn to their followers of like what do my followers want. But yeah, to your point with digital democracy, yes, you'll have followers that are outside your district, but you'll be able to see what does just my district want, what do they care about, or what is their decision. And that's how it should be. You should be representing your district. Your decisions should be based on what your district wants. Maybe not 100% of the time. There's other variables, but there should be some correlation. Right now, there's virtually no correlation between what people want and what they get. So yeah,
Yeah, they've
I love it.
conveniently forgot that part of the job.
Yeah. They're representatives, and they forget to represent.
They're just representing the people above them, and
Yep,
they can tell them what to do.
exactly.
Those us down here who are really the ones who they're supposed to be serving.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, even to tie this into the next segment here that we wanted to bring up. Pull up here. So this was the previous one. We're done with Epstein. And that one, yeah, sorry. So yeah, that was the article you were talking about earlier. So yeah, American Dream feels impossible for many young voters, and people like just really don't see a fix. We're gonna break this down over a series on our own social media where we're actually gonna address a lot of these post-its, but these are like legit concerns that Americans have had for the current system. And so we're going to kind of have our own answer to each of these over time on social media. So like one of them, this guy Eric said, the sad truth is I can't think of a single politician whom I trust, not one. And like, at most, some people, maybe there's like 2 or 3 outliers that people feel like they can trust out of like everyone that's out there. But like, it's so true. Just, look at poll after poll, and trust is just so hard to come by in the political world. And so it's clear as day, looking at polling, look at this information, look at different articles. And again, it's not partisan specific. It's both sides have very little trust these days, and for good reason. And that's why we need to push for more accountability, more transparency, and overall just better candidates. We're not looking to push people left, push people right, but we want better candidates. Imagine if your party focuses on your better candidates, the other party focuses on their better candidates. You're still going to want your candidates to win, but at least when you lose, you'll know that they at least have better candidates that actually want to serve the people and are not in bed with the 1% and influence against you, against your own interest. So it's all part of what we're pushing towards.
Yeah, Wayne, I was reading through all those post-it notes, like I was saying before, like I think everybody who reads that, there's not one of them on there that you wouldn't agree with, that you wouldn't be like, you know what, yeah, I agree with that. And just like this guy, like I don't have to trust, a politician in all aspects of life. I just have to trust that they're going to actually represent me and the district that they're supposed to fairly. Because like I know they're not going to represent me specifically, everything I want, but I just have to trust that they're going to actually hear me. And I think that's where that trust is. You don't trust that they hear you. Yeah. You don't trust that they give a shit. They may say it and say, some fancy words and some fluffy promises, but in the end, that trust isn't there. They're not going to follow through on that. I think everybody feels that, and they've been feeling it for a long time. It's just we haven't had a path to actually giving that some teeth, as we say. We need to give democracy some teeth, and this is where we need to be able to fight back and say no more.
Yeah, totally agree with all that. And real quick, like part of what she's saying about democracy not having teeth, like one of the core issues that we're addressing is that part of the problem with democracy is we all have our different opinions, choices, decisions. It's not even just left versus right. There's like a more far left. There's socially far left. There's fiscally far left. There's right. There's socially right. There's so many ways that we divide and separate, and so an unstructured democracy just has too many choices. Like, imagine if at an election there's literally like 200 choices on your ballot. A, you wouldn't be able to look at all the candidates, and then B, like everyone's votes would be diluted, and then like who's gonna win? Somebody that got like 1% of the vote, but everyone else only got like 0.5% of votes. Like So, the cure for that is that we want to build infrastructure, democracy infrastructure that knows, people are never going to agree. We're not all going to America's not going to get all on the same page on how to deal with healthcare, how to deal with the economy and all these different issues. But there could be a better infrastructure to sort it out. Where does most people land? Where, like, if we're divided on this one issue, if you zoom in, is there parts of it where like 80% of us do align that we could just push that aside? Like, so, using different technology, algorithms, maybe some AI to not to come up with the ideas, but to aggregate the current opinions of the American people, and then allow America to build the consensus over what America wants in the end all be all. So that's part of how we give teeth to democracy, is building infrastructure that helps really helps facilitate the decision making. It's all about, like, if you're definitely not going to get your primary decision, then you might move to your second best decision, and then at the end of the day there is going to be some compromise because it is democracy. So we're going to sort all that out between the digital politics hub and digital democracy.
And there's that magic word, compromise. People have forgotten that sometimes we have to not be fully happy with what we get, as long as what we do get isn't hurting people, because that's where we end up a lot of the times, is that it's either all or nothing and there's no middle ground, and we need to learn to have that middle ground and be able to have discussions. We just can't have discussions with people anymore. I mean, there are a good chunk of people who can actually have discussions, but you get to people who are on a far side of any of the spectrums, and it becomes propaganda. Their headlines, their talking points that they've heard over and over, whether they're factual or not, they're going to believe them, and they're going to shove it down your throat and keep saying it until it is true, or they make it true. It's like that's not how truth works. That's not how facts works, but that seems to be how it works these days.
Yeah, totally. So this is the second point. This is all the it's an NPR article where these details came out. So this person, Lindsay in Ohio, said, "I have come to distrust both political sides. I truly feel like there aren't any politicians that have the future of young people in mind. Everyone is out to help themselves and their agendas, and that's it. I've become politically burned out." And it's so funny because, like, I hear it all the time where, like, older generations say, "Oh, young people, they're lazy and they don't care and they're just not paying attention." It's like, no, they care, but like they're tired. They're already tired and burned out of, like, if you hate both choices, like how energized can you be? How many times can your choice is to vote for Trump or for not Trump, and there's no like for on the other side, Trump or not Trump, for like 13 years now. And people are tired of the same old same, and no matter which side wins, the economy still gets worse, and the middle class keeps shrinking and all that. So people are sick of the way the system is right now, and the only way to really move past this, it can't be about a partisan, like, one side winning, because that's not gonna happen, but it's about getting better candidates across the board. So, like, with digital democracy, the goal is to showcase all candidates equally, build one system instead of every single candidate having to raise their own millions of dollars just to advertise and be seen by voters. We want to build one system that shows everyone, ensures that all the candidates are seen, give you all the information you need to make your own educated choice, regardless of where you stand on policy issues. We're not going to, this system is not going to push you on one side or the other. It's going to give you the facts. It's going to show you who's running. It's going to also encourage you to go into the primaries, which is where you get the more finely chosen decision making. Give you all the facts and then let you decide. But so what we're talking about is a cheaper, more efficient, easier, user-friendly way to do politics, a new way to see politics and politicians from one system that America owns themselves, and then showcase everyone. And that way you don't need to raise millions just to be heard. Everyone gets a chance to be heard. And then you raise based on merit instead of raising money. It's about raising merit and proving to America that you want to truly represent them, and that you have their interests in mind.
You said the magic words that make me smile every time. Cheaper and efficient, because so much money is wasted on that. And I think people who are, like people who care about social issues and stuff like that, this should be one of the biggest reasons they want to, join Fink, help Fink grow. Think about all that money that could be going to feeding people, housing people, it's whatever, that's money that is just, in my opinion, flushed down the toilet. We might as well take it out back and burn it. That's exactly what you're doing, because it's not going to anybody who doesn't already have millions of dollars, who isn't already in the weeds to things. So it's not useful. And I'm so looking forward to that being a thing of the past.
Yeah. No,
If it could come tomorrow, that would make me very, very happy, but I know I'll have to be a little bit more patient.
yeah, but I'm pretty hopeful that, like, once this really gets into the mainstream, like, understanding of what we're about, it's gonna grow very quickly, because there's very few reasons not to want what we're envisioning here. And yeah, to your point, I mean, there's literally, we spend it's over $10 billion a year in politics. Both grassroots, billions of dollars, just grassroots, $5, $10 at a time, as
I'm sure that's a conservative number too, because like that's just a number that like we see. There's probably a lot of like things that aren't really counted in this total that are getting spent. So like I feel like there's twice as much as what they actually say is being spent, because that's including the backdoor deals, those type of things. There's a lot of money, and it's just ridiculous. But I did want to hit on something you were saying, because you had said about like, the older people are complaining about the younger people. And I would say to them, well, it's your fault. The reason your children don't like politics is probably because of your politics, how you handled politics, how you had it in the house. Like if you had this mindset growing up, your kids wouldn't be this way, because they would have grown up in a healthy political environment where you can have these discussions, you have clear expectations, and et cetera, et cetera. So I'm like, it's your fault. I mean, it's our fault now, because when we're adults, it's our, can't blame your parents for the rest of your life. But if they're complaining, it's like, well, you could have given us a better foundation.
Yeah, great point. And also for the stats though, some people be surprised. Like, yeah, millennials are one of the least political generations of modern history. But also because we were in the transition of things falling apart, the Great Recession of 2008, and democracy falling apart, Citizens United, all happened in the last 10 some years. So like our generation, we don't know, like all we're seeing is the bad falling apart, but not like the light at the end of the tunnel. But Gen Z is very political. They're not political in the alliance of like Democrat and Republican, but they're involved in general. They're big in their whatever.
They're hungry for change, and that's good, and that's exciting, and that gives you hope for the future, when at least there's the new younger generations are wanting change, because you're not going to get the older people to do it, because they're the ones in essence that got us into this mess, because older people are the ones who are the biggest voting chunks. They have most of the money. It's like, who are you leaving it to? Who are you donating it to? What are you doing in your lifetime? So it's hope. Those are hopeful numbers when you hear that, or it makes you have hope for the future.
Yeah, it really is. So especially and it's the younger generations that like what we're doing about digital democracy. They could really see a better way of doing things. Eventually I feel we'll get all generations on board, but some of the older generations like, oh, well, this is how politics exists. This is how it's always been. It's like, no, this is not how it's always been. A couple decades ago, there wasn't TV, and the president would talk on a radio. And before that, would they mail their information to people? Like, no, this is not how the world has always been. Our country only existed for 200 years, only is relative, but like, nothing's been forever, and nothing is going to stay in the way it is. So now we're in the digital age. Politics can change. It's going to change. People are desperate for change. And this is the right answer, what we're talking about. We're not saying we have an answer for like the specifics, like healthcare, climate, things like that, but you fix the core problem of democracy, and you really give America their voice, and you really give accountability to those that are meant to represent us. Shit will fix itself over, not overnight, but it'll really move in the right direction, regardless, left versus right. If those that are elected truly cared about you, and they're spending their time legislating and representing you, and not dialing for dollars most of their time, it would change this whole system. And like, and you know, not having all their conflicts of interest, that would fix the system. It doesn't matter if there's left versus right differences. Yes, there's going to be battles and debates and stuff, but that's democracy. It doesn't have to totally cripple your entire system like you know, it didn't used to cripple the entire system like it does these days. um you know, so that is what we envision of like how to move this forward in a way that most people would agree, regardless if you're pro-Trump right now, against him, Democrat, Republican, anarchist, socialist. Everyone's invited into this system. Everyone deserves a voice as an American citizen. And you know, we can build a better system that again is cheaper, more efficient, and easier to understand than where we are today. So it's like a win-win-win, and it's just a matter of getting the people power involved. So again, that's when in a couple weeks, once we have that digital politics hub launched, we're gonna do a huge push on that. So get everyone's voices on there. So immediately you can start giving your own feedback in the building of this. We're going to co-create digital democracy with everyone. Anyone that wants to be involved will be a citizen architect and build this with us, as well as like even like as it's getting built, there's also going to be a lot of tools to help you see up versus down politics is what we usually push of like, you know, how can you even before we launch DD, how can you assess a candidate as up serving versus down serving? Does this candidate serve me? So right away, we'll start giving you guys checklists on how to assess that. And then as we build DD, it'll basically automate that for us and have a system that, you know, gives that in, like easily streamlines that information for everyone. So again, a lot of exciting times for what we're about to accomplish here.
Before we move on to this, I just wanted to touch on something that was in Lindsay's post-it note there, saying that like, you know, people aren't looking at the younger generation, like, you know, no politician is looking out for them or just thinking of them in general. And it's like, that's so short-sighted of them, because they should realize that this group of older people is eventually going to be this younger group. And that's why I've heard you say before, like, you know, digitizing politics is inevitable, like, because my son's generation, all they know is computers. You're telling me that when his generation is running the world that this isn't going to be happening? I would be very disappointed in that generation if when they get into power, they're not doing it. So like, we're already there. And if you want to be seen as a politician who is, you know, forward thinking, on the forefront of new innovation, like you should be jumping on this going, we need to start figuring out what's going to get these people involved. Because even if they're not voting how we all think they would, like just to get their vote, like that's a vote that you're missing. You're going to be losing these old people to vote soon because they're going to be in the ground. I mean, it's just fact of life. So you've got to start looking towards these people, if nothing else, for your party, not for you. Because like some people, they know by the time these kids are really voting or active, they're not going to be there or just not be interested, but you still have to make that effort. And I just think that it's very short-sighted of politicians.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Especially with the stats of right now, of where like Gen Z is even more political than millennials. So like those that are not paying attention, that are in power, they're kind of like, they better not be saying, oh well, you know, like following the path of like, oh well, you know, the older you are, the more political you are. But like, nah, well, it's a little different right now because Gen Z is super political, and they also like see that they barely have a future. American dream is dead. AI could kill us all tomorrow, and so politics needs to be fixed. So yeah, their traditional stats and traditional like trajectory is not gonna save them this time. It's gonna be less predictable as these next generations are moving forward.
I mean, if my son's an indicator of, you know, his generation, they better watch out, because like my son, he's listens to things, he has good analytical skills, he makes his own opinions, he researches things. Like if he wants to know something, he knows more about history than I do. Like when I have questions, I'm like, hey, you know, is this right? You know, you're my Google when it comes to certain things. And that's just where, I guess, like I said, it's a hopeful for me to see young people like that and have that mindset. And I didn't even try that. So I'm like, I don't know how you got that naturally, but I'm lucky.
Yeah. Well, to your point, I mean, like millennial and now Gen Z are the most educated generation ever. So there's that. And then the internet. Like I could go on and on about the internet. Like we all now have an unlimited worldwide library for free in our pockets. Like literally, no one has ever had that before. If you were like, huh, who, what happened in this war, or what happened in this time, or how does a caterpillar become a butterfly? Like before, you had to either ask your mom and dad and take it for face value, or you had to go to the library and find a book that had that answer. Now you freaking, any thought you have, you go on, just freaking pull out your phone and you have a million answers. Like that has never existed before, and that shapes a whole different breed of humanity, of like how information is at our disposal. And granted, there's negatives right now of like misinformation and stuff happens as well. But like with all advancements of everything, there's good and bad in everything. Um, but to your point, it makes it that more people, they see more perspectives now. Like you don't just see your religion, you see other religions, your politics, other politics, your country, how other countries live. Like you see a lot of other perspectives with the internet, and see how, like, you might see something that you wouldn't have seen if you just lived in a non-internet world. So yeah, so the next generations and going forward is very, very different. And to your point,
Say,
there.
and to partner that up with the fact that they were also raised in an atmosphere of like supportiveness. Like, when I was a kid, with kids are to be seen and not heard type thing. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but like he's raised in a atmosphere of where they're kind of encouraged to push back and encouraged to stand up for themselves and encouraged to help other people and stuff like that. Like it's a different atmosphere or type of parenting that most people in that generation have, because like they were raised by people who were hardcore, and then now their parents are trying to reverse what they did. So that also makes a big difference in that generation and how they act.
Yeah, great point. Cool.
I mean, I know some people say participation trophies are bad, and they are if it's done badly, I guess, but not everybody gets negative from that atmosphere and how that people were raised like that.
Yeah, and nothing's that simple. Like, yeah, maybe like there's definitely something to be said of like praising somebody, like everyone's a winner kind of a thing. Maybe there's negative in that, but like what you said, of teaching people to push back. Yeah, absolutely. Like I always hated it that, like, when I was little, it was almost like you have to assume the older somebody is, the wiser they are. So like, but it's like, no, I have my one grandmother was not very well educated and didn't really know much of what's going on, and like I could see younger people that understood things a lot better. And like, so to me it's always weird that like you can't just perfectly correlate that age makes you wiser. There's so many other variables. But yeah,
Yeah,
push
pushing
back.
back with respect is a skill,
Yeah.
and if you don't ever practice it, you're not going to have it. So if you don't give your children or anybody younger than you that at least opportunity to, because like I like a good banter, I like a good argument, but I say that in the nicest way. I love those kind of conversations because it makes you think, it makes you
Yeah.
reflect on why you believe what you believe,
Yeah.
as opposed to just repeating it and not thinking about it.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, I mean that ties into like how like debating right now isn't really working out, and we have to relearn how to debate. And it's, you gotta stop demonizing the other side and actually hear out why they choose the things they choose. And whether you may never agree with it, but at least like understand where they're coming from. Most people are not coming from a bad place. They're doing the right thing to the best of their own knowledge. And they could be wrong, but they're trying to do their best. It's about intention. Their intentions are usually pure. um but
I was gonna say, being mindful of the time. I see we're
yeah.
at the hour mark. I know I'm terrible with time. I'll just sit here and chat you up for hours.
Yeah,
But I
so
guess we got enough time to, highlight this thing here, the last
yeah.
little section we have.
Yeah, so just wanted to highlight. So the Money Out of Politics organization, one of our allies, is pushing for this. There's a lot of organizations that are involved in this, from November 25th to December 2nd. They're pushing for no shopping, no spending, no consent. And the idea is just pushing back on the system in general, the brokenness of the system, money in politics, and just showing just really trying to show the unrest of the American people. This is beyond left versus right. It's about just the general unhappiness, the lack of trust, the money in politics that most America wants to get rid of, things like that. Anything else specifically you want to touch on about this, Carrie?
I don't know. It's nice to see that there's organizations that have a very focused fight. Like this is something we all can agree with. So it's nice to see that these organizations exist and that we can partner up with them and at least align and work together and hopefully make big changes.
Yeah, like look at this I actually quote this stat now that I saw it on here, but like, so every $1 spent on lobbying generates an average of $760 in government benefits for the corporations. So, when they're bribing politicians, it's a direct return on investment. They know, like, hey, I'm going to give $20,000 today, but the regulations or the legislation that happens is going to benefit me, 1,000-fold. So
yeah, I mean, I do also wonder. I would like to see like the actual impact after this, because I know that a few different organizations have done this before. I believe in like February and March there were similar ones, but those were a little bit more targeted. But I think they need to highlight the aftermath of these more, because like we hear them in the beginning, but then we don't really hear anything on the back end of it. Like what happened afterwards? Did anybody really feel this impact? I mean, but I give them credit for at least doing it. I mean, the fact that they can get people to sign up and that they all are agreeing to it, that's great. Like that's a good start.
Yeah.
But I would call out that if you are going to participate in that and you feel like spending money, maybe you should come donate to Fink or some kind of good organization that, you feel is doing good work, because everybody likes spending money. And I think going a whole week without buying certain things just might be hard, especially for people who, shopping therapy. Well, go on a giving spree and give to things that organization and causes that could use it more than that Starbucks latte.
Yeah, good. Well said. Yeah, and last thing for me on this is like, so it can be arguable about like, between like these boycotts, protests, and like how much it influences, and like I do think it's important for spirit to show that a lot of people are unhappy, things like that, but it also has to complement on other solutions. Protests alone, boycotts alone are not going to get us what we want. You can't say, hey, like we're going to do this until you like, get money out of politics. Like it might spread awareness. It's not going to be the end all be all. Which is why our grander mission is to, change this, like really upgrade boils down to upgrading our candidate selection process, how we choose who we vote for, instead of it just being a mess and everyone, it's a free for all of like politicians are free for all of like, whoever they can like they have to raise their own money to advertise themselves is a free for all for them, and it's a free for all for us citizens that we have to do our own research and make sure that we know who the candidates are and all that, and there's not like a standardized system. So that's what we're going to build. We're going to build a one-stop shop for all the political information, digital democracy. It's going to be the official digital home for America's democracy, literally owned by the citizens for the citizens. And again, the idea is that so instead of each candidate having to raise millions to guarantee they'll be seen by voters, we build one system that shows everyone. There's over 3,000 elected officials right now, from federal to local, and each one of them has to raise exorbitant amounts of money. But if we have one system that shows all 3,000, it's so much cheaper, efficient, and user friendly. So that's what we're calling for as like the best change. Yes, keep protesting, boycotts. That we're not saying not to do that. We definitely encourage that as well. But it also needs to, and there has to be a game of like, now what do we do in addition to that, and what are we pushing towards? And so this is our better vision of the future. Good.
That's what I was going to say. That's where Fink and like the meta movement is going to make such a big impact in like the action clusters. Because let's say I was in a money out of politics action cluster, this organization MOP would be in there, and I would see this blackout or economic blackout that they're doing. And there might be something else they could buddy up with it. And then they could also potentially have a what's next already planned. And, there's probably some other organization that has something that could, help this along or be another long-term solution that they can start with after this. So just coordinating is going to be so important and so helpful going down the road.
Yeah, it's all about that coordination. I mean, that's why our next phase is the coordination hub. It's all about like properly coordinating. But again, one of the things, like, even when you zoom into one side, it's kind of, especially the left, they tend to, people have a lot of opinions, let's say, and they end up dividing over differences of opinions. And so that's why, like, the core of what we're building is not to force people to say, like, oh, no, you have to agree with us, stand in line in order to be together. It's like, no, we're not all going to agree on stuff, but that's okay if we build the right infrastructure that respects that we're all going to have different viewpoints. And so that's, at the core of what we're building. But anyway, yeah, so that's it. Carrie, any last words before I give a final spiel?
No, just thanks for having me, and I always enjoy being here and chatting with you.
Yeah, it was a great conversation today. So yeah, everyone, so again, we're FINC, Futures Now Coalition, basically a civic utility to plug in everyone into one shared system. It starts with the digital politics hub, which we're launching less than a month from now. So join our newsletter, go to our website, join our newsletter, make sure you're following us on socials. We'll make some big announcements when that gets launched. So the Digital Politics Hub is our coordination space to build the next generation of politics, digital democracy. We want citizens involved, politicians, journalists, movements, and other political orgs, all grassroots. To have a voice, have a say. We're going to build this with America, not just for you guys, with America. We're the referee on the side. We just want to make sure it gets built fairly, it gets the right features that benefit the American people, and that Americans stay the owners of this, and it's not like party gatekeepers owning this system or like the corporate America. We see it as digital democracy is inevitable, and we want to ensure that citizens own it, citizens can build it, citizens decide what's in there, and it's done right, and it's done in a way that brings accountability and transparency into the system. So check out our website, futureis.org. All our handles is futureis.org, all one word. TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Blue Sky, a lot of different places. You'll see it right on the homepage. Again, join the newsletter so you'll be alerted in the next couple of weeks when the Digital Politics Hub is launched. When you join it, you'll be able to put your name to be a future owner of this platform. Every American can opt into an equal ownership stake of that technology. It's not like we're going to own it. Everyone in America is going to be able to own this. Everyone that, like, as soon as you turn 18, you can opt in to own it. So put your name on there. You'll be able to nominate journalists and candidates and other things, as well as micro actions to spread awareness, build the people power faster to make this a reality. If we all go according to the blueprint and move this forward, we'll have the first big product of digital democracy ready by the midterms, and even have a people's primary by the general election. So a lot of good changes, a lot of good stuff happening. I know some of you that have been following for a while, we've been a little confusing on like the plans, or a lot of layers to our plan. We finally learned to streamline it. So with this new milestone that we're hitting, it'll be a lot clearer, and you'll have the Digital Politics Hub to understand everything. So a lot of great changes in a few weeks. So stay tuned. We'll also be back to, next week, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We're here on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And I think that's it. Do we have a teaser about what the next episode is? I don't know if we've fleshed it out yet.
No, not 100%, because that's more going to be Liz. So.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, we're that's another thing. By December, we'll be getting ahead on the game, so you can see a few episodes ahead of what topic we're going to talk about. Right now, we're kind of planning it basically the day before, but we'll be much better planned out forever after, starting by next month. So again, a lot of good milestones. So please follow us, like us, share, hearts on this, on if you're on our TikTok here, whatever platform, do whatever the likes and shares and subscribes are. Again, we're building something highly unique. No one is doing what we're doing, and no one's doing it the way we're doing it. Highly unique. Genuinely want to see change in this country. The current efforts are great, a lot of great attempts, but nothing is working, and there's a missing piece to it, and it's about coordination and building this better system, regardless of where you stand politically. So this is the thing that can fix all the other things. No one has to change what they're doing. This just enhances and interconnects everyone else's efforts into the core mission that we should all care about, and having a true direct democracy where you actually get represented by your representation. So with that, thank you guys for being here, and we will see you next week. Thank you.